fruit now for the base of the crumble. You can use any type of fruit that you like. Apples are a really popular choice. This is a Granny Smith apple. It's just a variety of apple. It's an eating apple. You can get different types. So you can get cooking apples, which have got a really thick, waxy skin, and they're quite sour. But when you cook with them and you add sugar, it makes it okay. Some people like to use some rhubarb. Some people like to use summer fruits. You can use pears, whatever you like. But whichever fruit you decide to use, we're going to chop up into small pieces and we're going to soften for a short time in a pan. So using a bridge hold, make a bridge with your hand, hold onto your apple, knife goes under the bridge down towards the board, cut the apple in half. And you can see that there's a core that runs from the top of the apple right the way through the middle and to the bottom. So using a bridge hold again, we're going to cut the apple in half right the way down the middle of the apple, halves, and now we've got quarters. What I'm going to do next is cut it into eighths, and then if we turn each of the pieces of apple onto their side, we can cut the edge of the apple off, and that takes the core out for us. Now you'll notice that I've left the skin on this apple. You can leave the skin on, or you can take the skin off. If you're going to take the skin off, it's really difficult to do once you've cut it up into small pieces. So it's something that you'd want to do to the apple before you started to cut it up. If it's an eating apple, it's okay to leave the skin on if you don't mind that. If it is a cooking apple, you'll want to remove the skin. And so you'll use one of these peelers. Whilst the apple's whole, you'll just run the peeler down the edge of the apple, pressing down to remove the skin there. So you go around the whole apple before you start cutting it up. Now you'll notice when you start to cut the apple, it will start to go a little bit brown. This one's starting to already. A cooking apple, even more so, they're really quick to go brown. And that is the process of enzymic browning. So the enzymes on the inside of the fruit, when they come into contact with the oxygen in the air, enzymic browning will occur. So you can prevent enzymic browning. You can destroy the enzymes with heat, which the cooking process will do. By putting the fruit into some water, that will stop as much oxygen getting to the outside of the fruit as well. And you can also use an acid like vinegar or lemon juice or something like that. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to work as quickly as we can. Now I've just noticed I've cut that piece open and it's got a little bit of a brown bruise in it. So any bruised bits, that bit's got it as well, you can leave out. And we want all of these pieces of apple to be roughly the same in size so that they're all the same on the inside of the crumble. So we're going to pop the fruit into a saucepan with about a tablespoon of water. A tablespoon is a really small amount. I'll show you. It's the bigger spoon that you'll have in your drawer, or this is a measuring spoon. It's just enough water to stop the apple from sticking in the pan. So I've put my apples into the pan, and in the bottom of the pan now I've just got a small amount of water like I mentioned. If you've got quite a sweet eating apple, then you don't need to add very much sugar. I've asked you to bring 25 grams in for the fruit. This is what 25 looks like. I'm going to add about half of that because they're not really sour cooking apples. But if you had rhubarb or a cooking apple, you might want to add all of that in. If you've got any summer fruits like strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, or even blackberries going into the autumn, those don't take very long to cook. So the only fruits that we're going to soften off like this for a few minutes are your apples, pears, plums, rhubarb. And we want it on a medium to low heat. We don't need to be producing lots of heat there. I've got it on one of the larger rings. And then I'm just going to use a wooden spoon to give it a gentle stir from time to time. Now I brought in a few sultanas to go in with mine. And I've also brought in some cinnamon, which I'm going to add into the mixture just to give it a little bit of flavour. So apple, sultana and cinnamon. I'm going to wait to add those just until these apples have softened a bit more. So I can tell that my apple's starting to soften a little bit now, and I haven't got too much water slopping around in the bottom. If you're using pears, you would prepare them in the same way as you did with the apples. If you're using plums, there's a stone in the middle of a plum that needs to come out. So you'll cut round the edge of the plum, twist it, get the stone out. If you're using rhubarb, you'll just trim each of the ends off the rhubarb stick, give it a wash. Anything that you're using the skin on, eating the skin off, needs washing. If you're peeling the skin off, then it doesn't matter. So what we're going to do now is just go in with 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, not very much, it's quite strong. If you wanted to be quite fancy, you could even use a cinnamon stick. And then I'm just going to pop my sultanas in. Now this would also be the time, if you were using some summer fruits, just to pop those in for the last 30 seconds of cooking. They soften so quickly that they literally need about 30 seconds. So I'm just going to stir in my cinnamon and then turn off the heat. Next thing to do then would be to tip this mixture into the bottom of your oven-proof dish. So you could put all of your mixture into the bottom of quite a big oven-proof dish like that. That's what most people bring in. But you could alternatively make them in smaller ramekins, and you'd simply just take your spoon and put a spoonful of mixture over the top of each one. If you were putting it into a larger dish, you could just pour it all in. And don't be tempted to flatten it all down. For some reason, that's what people tend to want to do. They want to sort of flatten it all, press it all down. So we're just going to put all this in. We'll give it a little bit of a shake. Some people like to put nuts and all sorts of things in the topping. So I'm just going to give each one a little shake and tap it down, and it should just level itself off quite naturally. And then those are going to go into the oven for about 25 minutes. Okay, so they've had 25 minutes in the oven. You can see the top now is nice and golden brown. And so that's cooked. The fruit should be cooked underneath. So that's your crumbles done.